High above the surrounding continents, a vast plateau stretches toward the horizon, where thin air, strong winds, and extreme seasons define the rhythm of life. In this elevated world, nature sets strict boundaries, shaping how people move, settle, and survive. Endurance here is not an exception, but a way of life refined over centuries. This is Tibet, a land formed by the collision of continents and sustained on the world's highest inhabited plateau. Often called the roof of the world, Tibet's geography has shaped its history, culture, and belief systems in profound ways. Rising more than 4,000 meters above sea level, the Tibetan Plateau gives birth to some of Asia's great river systems, influencing regions far beyond its borders. Vast grasslands, frozen lakes, and distant mountain ranges create a landscape both isolated and deeply connected to the wider world. For generations, life in Tibet has been guided by a close relationship between people and environment. Harsh conditions fostered resilience, while spiritual traditions emerged as a response to the scale and power of the land itself. Monasteries, nomadic routes, and ancient settlements reflect a culture shaped by altitude, silence, and time. This documentary explores Tibet not only as a place on the map, but as a living landscape, where geography defines identity, belief grows from the land, and life continues at the edge of the sky. Tibet's geography is dominated by the Tibetan Plateau, the highest and most extensive plateau on Earth. Rising more than 4,000 meters above sea level, this vast elevated landmass shapes climate, movement, and settlement across the region. Thin air, long winters, and strong winds define an environment where survival depends on adaptation. The plateau is bordered by some of the world's greatest mountain ranges, including the Himalayas, which act as natural barriers while also giving rise to major river systems. Glaciers and high-altitude lakes feed rivers that flow across Asia, supporting millions of people far beyond Tibet's borders. In this way, Tibet's geography holds significance well beyond its immediate landscape. Historically, Tibet's extreme terrain limited large-scale agriculture and dense urban development. Communities formed around river valleys, grasslands, and seasonal routes, shaping a society based on pastoralism, trade, and spiritual centers. Isolation provided protection, allowing local traditions and systems of governance to develop with limited outside influence. Despite its remoteness, Tibet was never entirely cut off. Ancient trade routes connected the plateau with Central Asia, South Asia, and China, enabling the exchange of goods, ideas, and beliefs. These routes played a crucial role in shaping Tibet's cultural and political history. Over centuries, geography influenced the rise of monastic institutions that became central to Tibetan society. Religious centers served not only spiritual roles, but also educational and administrative functions, reflecting how belief and governance evolved in response to the land. In Tibet, history cannot be separated from geography. The plateau, mountains, and rivers formed the framework within which Tibetan civilization emerged and endured. Tibetan culture has been shaped by life at extreme altitude, where geography influences not only survival, but values, belief, and social structure. In an environment defined by thin air, cold temperatures, and vast open spaces, communities developed strong traditions centered on endurance, cooperation, and spiritual balance. For centuries, daily life in Tibet revolved around pastoralism, agriculture in limited river valleys, and seasonal movement across grasslands. Nomadic herders adapted to harsh conditions by following grazing cycles, while settled communities formed around monasteries and trade routes. These patterns of life fostered close social bonds and a deep respect for shared resources. Spiritual belief plays a central role in Tibetan society. Buddhism became deeply woven into everyday life, shaping art, architecture, education, and moral values. Monasteries served as more than places of worship. They functioned as cultural centers, schools, and hubs of knowledge. Rituals, prayer, and pilgrimage reflect a worldview in which harmony with nature is essential. Tibetan identity is also expressed through language, traditional clothing, music, and festivals, many of which are closely tied to seasonal cycles and religious calendars. In a land where nature is powerful and unpredictable, cultural expression emphasizes continuity and meaning rather than excess. Despite isolation, Tibetan culture has long absorbed influences through trade and exchange with neighboring regions. This interaction enriched local traditions while preserving a strong sense of identity rooted in the plateau itself. Today, Tibetan society continues to adapt to change, balancing modern influences with centuries-old traditions. Across cities, villages, and grasslands, culture remains closely linked to the land, a reflection of life shaped by altitude, belief, and time. Rising along the southern edge of the Tibetan Plateau, Mount Everest, known in Tibet as Qomolangma, meaning Goddess Mother of the World, stands as the highest point on Earth. From the Tibetan side, the mountain emerges from a vast, windswept plateau, emphasizing its scale and isolation rather than sheer vertical drama. Qomolangma was formed by the ongoing collision between the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates, a process that continues to lift the Himalayas even today. Glaciers descending from the mountain feed high-altitude river systems, linking this extreme environment to landscapes far beyond the plateau. For Tibetans, Qomolangma is not defined by conquest or elevation records. The mountain holds deep spiritual significance, regarded as a sacred presence within the natural order. It is approached with reverence, symbolizing balance between humanity, nature, and the divine. This perspective reflects a broader Tibetan worldview in which mountains are living elements of the spiritual landscape. Life around the Everest region on the Tibetan Plateau is shaped by altitude, cold, and vast open terrain. Settlements are sparse, movement is slow, and survival depends on deep knowledge of weather and seasonal patterns. Trade routes and pilgrimage paths once crossed these highlands, connecting Tibet with neighboring regions despite extreme conditions. Today, Mount Everest draws global attention, yet from the Tibetan side, it remains a place of quiet scale and profound meaning. Qomolangma stands not only as the world's highest peak, but as a symbol of Tibet's relationship with the land, one defined by respect, endurance, and spiritual depth. Covering vast stretches of Central Asia, the Tibetan Plateau is the highest and largest plateau on Earth. Rising at an average elevation of over 4,000 meters, this immense landscape shapes climate systems, river networks, and human life across much of the continent. Often called the roof of the world, the plateau stands as one of the planet's most powerful geographical features. Formed by the collision of the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates, the Tibetan Plateau continues to rise, driving geological activity that shapes surrounding mountain ranges, including the Himalayas. Its glaciers and high-altitude lakes serve as the source of many of Asia's great rivers, supplying water to regions far beyond the plateau itself. The environment here is defined by thin air, strong winds, and long, harsh winters. Vegetation is sparse, and movement across the plateau is slow and deliberate. These conditions have limited large-scale settlement, shaping societies built around mobility, pastoralism, and seasonal adaptation rather than dense urban life. Despite its isolation, the plateau has never been empty. For centuries, nomadic herders and settled communities learned to live within this extreme environment, developing deep knowledge of weather patterns, grazing cycles, and natural landmarks. Survival depended on cooperation and respect for the land, values that became embedded in culture and belief. Spiritually, the Tibetan Plateau is regarded as a sacred landscape. Mountains, lakes, and open plains are seen as living elements of a greater natural order. This spiritual understanding reflects a worldview shaped directly by the scale and power of the plateau itself. Rising above the city of Lhasa, the Potala Palace stands as one of the most iconic structures on the Tibetan Plateau. Built atop a rocky hill, its white and red walls dominate the surrounding valley, reflecting both the spiritual and political history of Tibet. Originally constructed in the 7th century and later expanded in the 17th century, the Potala Palace served as the winter residence of the Dalai Lamas and the center of Tibetan governance. Its location was carefully chosen, elevated above the city, symbolizing authority, protection, and a close connection between spiritual leadership and the land. The palace's architecture reflects adaptation to extreme altitude and climate. Thick stone walls provide insulation against cold temperatures, while narrow windows reduce heat loss and exposure to strong winds. Inside, a complex network of halls, chapels, and stairways houses sacred relics, murals, and centuries of religious art. Beyond its physical structure, the Potala Palace holds deep spiritual significance. It functioned as a place of meditation, learning, and ritual, reinforcing the central role of Buddhism in Tibetan society. The palace embodied a system in which spiritual belief and political leadership were closely intertwined. Today, the Potala Palace remains a powerful symbol of Tibetan identity. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it stands as a testament to the endurance of culture and belief shaped by life on the world's highest plateau. In the story of Tibet, the Potala Palace represents the meeting point of geography, history, and spirituality. Set high on the Tibetan Plateau, Yamdrok Yumtso is one of Tibet's most revered sacred lakes. Its turquoise waters stretch across a wide basin surrounded by rolling hills and distant snow-capped peaks, creating a landscape where openness and stillness define the atmosphere. Formed through ancient geological processes, the lake sits at extreme altitude, fed by snowmelt and mountain streams. Unlike fast-flowing rivers, Yamdrok Yumtso appears calm and enclosed, reflecting the sky and surrounding terrain. Seasonal changes alter its color, shifting from deep blue to pale green under varying light and weather. For centuries, Yamdrok Yumtso has held profound spiritual significance. The lake is regarded as a living entity, deeply connected to Tibetan belief systems that view natural features as sacred presences. Pilgrims travel long distances to circumambulate its shores, believing the journey brings spiritual merit and balance. The area around the lake supports small communities who have adapted to life in a harsh, high-altitude environment. Pastoralism remains central, with grazing lands shaped by climate and elevation. Daily life follows the rhythms of nature, where weather and seasons dictate movement and survival. Beyond its spiritual role, Yamdrok Yumtso reflects the deep relationship between Tibet's people and their environment. In a land where resources are limited and conditions extreme, respect for the natural world is essential. The lake stands as a symbol of harmony between belief, landscape, and life on the roof of the world. From vast plateaus to sacred mountains and silent lakes, Tibet reveals a land shaped by altitude, endurance, and belief. Here, geography is not merely a setting, but a force that guides history, culture, and the rhythm of life itself. Across centuries, people have adapted to extremes, building traditions rooted in respect for nature and spiritual balance. Mountains are honored, lakes are revered, and open grasslands carry the memory of generations who learned to live in harmony with an unforgiving environment. Despite change and the passage of time, Tibet remains defined by its connection to the land. Belief, resilience, and identity continue to rise from the plateau, shaped by thin air and vast horizons. As this journey comes to an end, Tibet stands not only as the roof of the world, but as a living landscape, where earth and sky meet, and where life continues at the highest edge of human existence.